Hello, everybody. I just put out recently a new video essay over on my essay channel called How Astrobot Breaks the Fourth Wall. And the focus of that is how Astrobot breaks the fourth wall during its credit sequence and actually elevates the gameplay in the moment and the emotions. And I explore all of that. And I also just wrote the behind the scenes post that I always put up after each video after a week or so has passed, just exploring its process and creativity. And I kind of thought it would be fun to do like a director's commentary slash exploration of the timeline as well, then throw it up here on the main channel. Now, if you like this sort of stuff and you want more behind the scenes, more real time stuff, I would definitely encourage you to check out my newsletter, Memory Card, which is like the realish time creative process of making these video essays. So a lot of the stuff that you may read in the behind the scenes or see in this video, I've been talking about and exploring as I make each essay. So you can check the link out in the description below and read a couple letters or sign up. I think it would be pretty fun to have you join along. But without further ado, let's jump into the timeline. So the final video is about 9.5 minutes. So it's not a long essay. It's not too beefy, but I figured just start at the beginning, kind of go through it. And the opening of this essay
Shortly after the
is
Christmas of 24, I tossed one of my gifts.
I needed to
inside my
fill the
shiny,
time
expensive PS5 Pro.
until I get to this Astrobot reveal, which is about 20 seconds in. And so I just needed some filler stuff to talk about like allude to Astro, but I mean, clearly this is Astro, but not just be outright. And so the big focus of that was just I found the PS5 Pro reveal trailer. It's shiny, it's pretty, it's in 4K. The same thing with these little Astrobots. I almost pulled that that commercial with the kid from Stranger Things advertising the portal as little Astros running around. But I needed something until I got to the words Astrobot,
Astrobot.
Bam.
A few levels in, and it.
Now we can pivot. I needed music here. I didn't want to lean on the Astrobot soundtrack until I mentioned Astrobot, and I actually time Astro music here with the music that plays in this clip. I actually time that down here so that it keeps playing, so that the music has continuity from the Game Awards clip. So Astrobot, Astrobot.
PlayStation.
I am Astrobot.
Style.
So that keeps going, even though I've cut the clip, and I think that just smooths out the transition so much. I think it's a really slick and subtle thing to do, and I love doing them. I do another one a little bit later on in the video, but that right there. So I don't want Astro music until this point. So I just grabbed a 10-hour video of the PS5 first boot screen and just trimmed it down, just found 21 seconds that I liked and plopped it in there. It's PS5 related. It's fine. One clip that I didn't get to incorporate was this guy. He is from, let's see if I can find the commercial file. He's the guy that says the power of PlayStation. So from those ads over in Europe, and you probably have heard it in the Podcast Beyond intro. Here it is.
On our guard. Remember, do not underestimate
The power of PlayStation. So I say the power of PlayStation here. That is a direct reference. And I wanted to include it, but it felt forced, a little ham-fisted. And if you don't know, you don't know. So I did hide this, but I tried. So I pulled this in from my Fortnite and Zelda, what Zelda stole from Fortnite. I pulled this. I made this effect. This is good. I always call the Game Awards the Keeleys, as I do with the boys. So why not reuse the thing I already made? I think that's effective use of this little clip. So I just pulled that from the previous project, and it was all good. We've got our Astrobot winning here. And then instead of making my own montage, I let Sony do the work here and just pulled the Astrobot launch trailer. As a good little montage, it shows a bunch of diverse gameplay, and I didn't have to bring in, how many clips are in here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 different levels. I didn't have to pull in 7 huge 4K 60 assets. I just could play one and have their montage play. So that, I think, is another kind of efficient use of YouTube and the internet, but communicating. I mean, I have similar footage. So
Estimate that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways. The credit sequence in particular just
I want it. The essay is about the credit sequence, right? So I wanted to tease it. I wanted to show it. I wanted to entice them because I'm not going to talk about the credit sequence right away. I need to build up the fourth wall and talking about it, defining it, and why I think this works. But I wanted a visual thing of like, let's do it. And so we go show the beginning. I don't want to show him jumping on the memory cards because I think that's like a pivotal moment in my discussion and in my like overall thesis. So I fade before we can get to the memory cards and just put in the regular credits, which have their own little references. You'll see here we've got still here you get some cool points throughout the whole credits. There's little nods and references directly to. Kind of reminds me of the Toy Story credits where they would intentionally make bloopers and things like that. But anyway, I just played some average credits footage here. And then I think I needed a clip because we were going to launch into this definition phase. So I wanted something that kind of indicated like, well, let's go. Let's do this thing together.
Before I explain why and how I think they broke the fourth wall, I should explain what is the fourth wall and what does it mean to break it.
So he launches, and this is where I tried to break the fourth wall. This was definitely inspired by Rasputin, and I hope this video is good, is the video titled there. He does a similar kind of like stop the edit, cancel the edit is his pitch there. And then also Josh with parentheses in his says, "You are a better writer than AI. Yes, you," I think is the name of that video. Those are all linked in the site, the sources for the creation of this essay. But I freeze frame, I think, yeah. So I freeze that frame, the satellite launches, and I'm zooming out here, minimizing, and we see this set design where I'm going to go to good old Wikipedia and type the fourth wall. And I practiced this a couple times to find exactly roughly where I quoted these things from so we could zoom in and brought this to life. Now, you'll notice like I have some set decoration here. And I failed on a couple of fronts. I originally set it to play the music that is playing beneath this part of the video, which I believe is the Gotcha. Yeah, it's the Gotcha song from Astro over here. And that was playing when I started, but I forgot to put it on repeat. So it just started shuffling the Astro soundtrack. So you can see that down here in the corner, and you can see that up here. We've got this part of the script that I'm reading kind of off to the window here to the side. And then Wikipedia pops up. We zoom in, we read. And that's pretty much a verbatim quote. The rest I actually parsed from different quotes, trimmed a lot of the fat, but got to the essence. So instead of trying to showcase that in its entirety, I went back and made another clip, which you're going to notice we can't see anymore. And this is a good lesson for everyone. Don't delete files until you're sure they're backed up. This laptop is not on Backblaze, and I thought I had moved this file over to my solid state drive where the project resides, and I did not. So this clip is where I actually go back and start playing this supercut of movie scenes by Lee Singer. Made this cut. It's on Vimeo. I open it in a tab and start playing that video while I'm reading the second chunk from Wikipedia, using visual gags of fourth walls to help communicate what I'm talking about without you being able to hear the video or watch the whole thing. So I wanted to do that to spice it up and make it not just a boring wall of Wikipedia text, But you'll notice that you can see half of the, or not even half, but a quarter of the screen over here. And that is because I forgot to have this QR code back up. And I can't have the set like drastically change until we zoomed all the way in where you don't see it anymore. So I had to like kind of crop, play a little bit of movie magic here, but this would be playing that scene. And so if I wanted to rebuild this, I would just bring in my final export and layer it over, and I'd have the clip, and it'd be close enough. But a lesson, make sure your footage is all copied before you just start deleting things and back it up. We, of course, have to include Duck Amuck from Looney Tunes, so I pulled in a good clip because I think that's fun. You get to hear Daffy say it. Who's in charge here? The scenery. Where's the scenery?
Over the course of my...
So right there, if we kept that clip going, you'll see the paintbrush come down and paint a farm. And I wanted to mask that out so that it painted in these Astrobot clips, which I grabbed like 12 of them of just favorite characters, moments, or references, and then spaced them out evenly and set it to kind of pan across the screen, but at this angle. And what I did so they would be all in sync is just timed it on the frame where I think the text is clear, like it says Astro or something, wherever they're all in sync to bot rescued, like becoming perfectly legible, so that they all, because that's the same animation every time you get a bot. So I synced all of those up inside this compound clip, have it pan here in the compound clip. So I think that's about 12. I almost needed 3 more. And then angled the compound clip out here on the main timeline so that I could then have Rick Dalton from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood do his, hey, it's me, I'm on screen. Like, because when you're playing Astrobot, you're like, I know that one. You're trying to remember every reference. So I wanted to channel that a little bit there. And then we get to my CRT effect. Now, I needed some footage of the CRT, and I talk about this process where I'm finding this, basically this tube TV, royalty-free video that I can then mask and put in my own footage. And I struggled with some of it and found this static shot that I liked. I masked it. You'll see that I think, yeah, this is the top layer. So beneath it, I have like my Paper Mario footage. So this is straight digital 4K 60 crispy footage of Paper Mario. And what I've done to it is applied the GameSack Retro Video plugin and did all these different, tweaks and nods, added, some noise, some CRT curve, the glow. I think the rolling bars in there a little bit. But that's what it looks like before, and that's what it looks like now. And so then with the mask layer, it looks like it fits into this tube. Obviously, the colors don't match, but I don't think that necessarily matters here. It would be great if I could have filmed a real CRT and not had to do any of this. But this seemed the most practical since I'm including not just old footage, old consoles that I do have hooked up to a tube, but new consoles that aren't hooked up to a tube. So this seemed like the best option, as opposed to like making a video clip, putting it on PS3, hooking that up to the tube, and filming the tube that way. Although I think that's a good idea. So we have the mask layer on top. We have the footage down below. They all have the same curvature and clips like that. Beneath it is just the regular clip. And I do that so that we can just use the static that's already there. And I just grabbed a static channel changing kind of sound effect, put it in this blip. So I know the framing's perfect. I don't have to worry about anything. And it works there. So we have Paper Mario. We have Melee's credits. That was fun to go back and get. I have this clip from Outer Wilds getting this optional trophy. And I'm obviously stretching my dialogue here because I wanted this clip to play out because you don't, if you know, you know. And this was originally a little bit longer because it says like you have, it has some text up there for the game over screen, but I didn't want to drag it on too long. So I felt like this was an appropriate length for that clip, but I'm spacing out my audio. And then we've got the God of War clip, which, I want you to watch and kind of hear it a little bit, but then I want you to hear Thor. So I needed to kind of bring those together. I'm cutting this loading screen because they actually fake you out a lot longer than this. You think you actually die, it's great. And then, of course, we end with Psycho Mantis. Now, I probably could have chosen a different clip of Psycho Mantis here, because this moment is when he moves the controller with the vibration motor in there, or the rumble, I guess. Yeah, the rumble motor. And you don't see that. You're not seeing the controller move. So it's hard or feeling it in your hands if you didn't put it down. So I don't know if this was the best clip to convey it, but it's a clip that worked. And so we use that. Now, this is the native 4K capture, and we just do that. But we'll see in a little bit that I don't just use native 4K capture for Psycho Mantis. This is a clip I had early on that I was like, I have to include it at this part where I'm talking about it's not a fourth wall, it's a magic circle, like it brings you in. I don't think there's a better video game to convey that than Persona 4 Golden. So, I found this clip on YouTube. It was crispy enough for me. I didn't want to have to boot up the game and find this particular moment again. And then someone else on YouTube made this 4K transition. So we see a little bit of the original here. That's the real one. But then someone made this and, added a chroma key to it so I could come in here and bring that out. So, there's green in there. It's not the cleanest chroma key. You can see the image coming through, but it conveys what I wanted to convey. And it works for me. So then we get to the Stephen Conway quote. And I really struggled with this because these are the 3 images of Stephen I could find. These 2, and I believe this is Stephen as well. I think this face and this face seem similar. The beard, obviously, and the different, more bald here, but I think that's Stephen. Normally, when I have a quote, I would put up the person and just have the text on screen, but these were so low res. This is about as high as I could go without it looking it didn't look good. And I've had this idea from Mark over at Mark's Rec Room with all of his Paper Mario retrospectives and party game retrospectives, who I just had on the Max Frequency podcast, where he makes diegetic quote boxes for different executives like Iwata. So he'll have like the text bubble from We Party and then have Iwata's quote come through. And so I wanted to try that out. And Mr. Conway is the senior lecturer in games and interactivity at a university. So I was like, well, who's a professor? Well, Professor Oak. And this worked because I actually have my recorded footage from playing Leaf Green. So I have a high quality capture of it. And basically I just did text box, the typing, the typewriter text box with my Johto Sans font, shaded it the same way that the game did using the screenshot, and just brought these text elements in. I masked out, the click next button. So you can see it kind of hovering there. Some of the looping isn't perfect, but I don't think you're watching that part. So it's okay that I miss a frame or two, I think, in the loop. But we moved through the quote. I thought this was an interesting way to show it. And of course, then I'm playing the Welcome to the World of Pokemon music beneath. So that kind of makes you feel like you're in that scene. We're back to Psycho Mantis. So of course, we're playing Mantis's hymn underneath. And what I did was I synced up using a multicam. I think actually if we click that, yeah. I multicammed both off-screen CRT and then this. These are actually 2 separate playthroughs. I'm not recording this. This isn't both spitting out to the tube and to my HD TV. That would have been an efficient way to do it. But this smaller tube TV that I have that you see here in the shot is actually just composite or S-video. And I don't necessarily, I could have rewired the system to do that, where it's going out both to this smaller tube and in my TV, but I just played it twice. And so using the sound, I synced these 2 up because what I want to do is have this and then fade into, this fight for Metal Gear Solid. Fade into real life and how this scene was intended in the game, which of course was played on a tube. And I really had to trim this down. There was a lot of moments I wanted to include. I think I'm talking about it here. So we introduce Psycho Mantis circle and expands it out to a mind-bending experience. But the most important one for me to include was the Castlevania memory card. So I actually took my real Castlevania Symphony of the Night data from my PS3
the controller, faking
and put it on that memory card. Faking signal loss is what I decided to keep here because that's why you need the tube. Hideo video makes you think your TV is broken or the channel was changed. I actually did end up accidentally changing the channel while switching controller ports, which I think you see in this clip. Yeah. But I couldn't show the controller vibrating scene, which I tried to do here. But it would have been too rushed, too cut. So I just decided to have that be narrated and then see the video cut, the Hideo effect. We move through, we show me doing the controller thing, and you'll notice there's the remote for the TV that I left there for set design. I didn't need it there. I probably should have put it in front, as you'll see, because when I come over here and I bump it when I'm switching ports, my forearm presses down on it, and we switch to channel 2. And I could have refilmed it, but I decided to keep it because it's real. It's how these TVs worked. I thought it was fun. And so then, of course, we kind of get into the Astro explanation part of the essay. And this, I needed to fill this slot here until we get to the credit sequence. The rest is fairly straightforward, just going beat by beat in the game, talking about the credits. Here's our Team Asobi footage. I'm filling in with a couple of things like Prime the Emotional Pump, I think is what I'm talking about here. They use this psych out as a transition into what I have been calling their Wall-E moment. So this worked out perfectly. I couldn't have timed this better, where I think I'm talking about the sad Astro in the logo. This is perfectly timed. I didn't time it for this. This just happened this way. If Astro's theme, the logos start gliding by. Heck, we even get Team Asobi's logo sporting a sad Astro. You couldn't have asked for a better timing of that. I didn't make it. It's so good. I fill this in. This is obviously out of sequence because he comes back to grab everyone, but it failed the time because what I wanted to do was obviously get Astro falling in his state of disrepair, because this is now the moment. I let this clip play out pretty naturally for almost a minute. I do a cut and a fade here, so there's an arm being tossed and there's a heart being caught. Now, obviously, they're on different sides. I would have loved it if the arms synced up, but the action is enough, I think, to sync those up, because I obviously want to show the heart being put in. And I do this, I bring in the game sound here so that it's a bit diegetic and you can hear that heartbeat, because you're setting up this emotional payoff, right?
Be expecting just one more thing.
It's a good thump and a beat.
Zooms by.
The DualSense does not zoom by. It's all the consoles, so that's like a flub in the script. Not a flub, that's what I wrote and said, but I definitely should have checked the footage because the controller doesn't come in until here. So I couldn't show the DualSense. I needed all of this to kind of build up, so it's not the greatest match I wanted. And then we, of course, play out the level. Now, I do this sync up again with the music. So
the level title card flies in just like you've seen before, and the joyous rush of
Astro, it's so great, it's so much fun, and I bring that in, so that's going to sync. I love this joke. I wrote greatest hits and then realized that they were called greatest hits all the time. I thought it was kind of fun to just pick like 4 of my favorite power-ups. There are quite a bit in this section, and then slap up the greatest hits iconography from the first 4 generations of PlayStation. Quite conveniently, on one of the wikis out there, they're the SVGs of this, so these are really high-quality assets for me to play with. I had a futz with the PS2 one. It's pretty big, but I thought that was kind of fun. A good little nod, good little joke for PlayStation. And then this really kind of just plays out naturally. I obviously needed to time up the you here, because that's when we're talking about you, the player, you, the viewer. I like this fade,
where developers bring you inside. Without both the devs and you, there is no game.
There is no game. And I use that fade to like kind of convey some heavy emotion of like it doesn't exist. And then we call back to this, there's nothing to celebrate. There aren't developers. This is a moment, the hugs, it's great. There's a really good emotion here. This is a clip I needed something here for 9 seconds, and I just chose a fun Astro dancing, celebrating kind of moment. It's very flashy, it's bright, but I love it. But I need something there, so I put something there. We go back.
No memory cards to be read.
No memory cards to be read, so we're going back to this footage, which you actually didn't get to see because, again, I've cut here earlier, so we're filling this out. And then this felt like just this is from the beginning of the game, where Astro's kind of like, let's go, everybody, we're going to go on this adventure. It felt like a pretty good way to naturally wrap this video up. So, he whistles, we come together,
Play the game.
play the game. You've got the choir. So good. Astro jumps. He turns back. He waves. He's like, let's go play the game. And while the game may start there, that is where my video ends. I think that's so good. Again, I love when I can use moments that developers made, and I don't have to, I didn't have to make that emotion. My emotion is tying it to my script in a way that works really well, and I think it does, because we get this nice little fade. And then we go into my credits, which I try to time to the music underneath. I pick generally a fun song. We, of course, have the thank you. I call this a call to action. It's not really a call to action. I'm not asking you to just like or subscribe or do anything like that. I usually put a joke or a reference tied to the video here. So I, of course, pulled Psycho Mantis's line, "You like Castlevania, don't you?" I think that's good. Then, of course, the Bear styled credits, where the top is what's changing, not the writer, director, producer, and all that stuff. I love when that happens. And then we have the thanks to other fellow creators, Brian Hankin, Koana, and Wizawut. They provided a lot of help during this essay, so it was good. And then, of course, the credits. I time the credits by how long it takes for me to slowly read them. I'm a pretty fast reader, so I intentionally slow myself down and pick something that I think is legible and readable. So we kind of fade out. We have this little long excerpt here, but that's it. That's the timeline. That's how we did it. That's how I made the thing. Now, I wish I had a fourth wall break here at the end. And I realized during this, when I was filming this, I could have beaten Psycho Mantis, which I did, but then I could have turned to the camera and done a break and brought that in at the end. But I realized that way after this set was torn down, and I didn't want to set it back up, and I wasn't clear. I should have envisioned this part sooner so that I could implement it better. So I'm a little bummed, but I did get my fourth wall break with the screen share earlier in the video. It was marked by my missing file. I will not get that back. I have to fix that eventually. But yeah, that's the timeline. That's a nice 9.5-minute timeline, kind of explaining some of my thought processes, and how I made the decisions that I made to make this essay. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you watched this whole video but haven't watched the Astrobot essay, you should go do so over at Max Roberts Essays. There will be a link down in the description below, but check it out. Watch the essay, subscribe. More essays obviously will be coming. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, adios.